Now, is it worth it to print your own prints at home with a printer like the Canon Pixma Pro 10, or are you better off getting them printed at a lab? We're going to find out in a couple of seconds. Polin, phronosphoto.com, and I'm here with the Canon Pixma Pro 10. It is the first professional inkjet printer that I've ever had sitting on my desk. Now, I've been anti-inkjet printers for quite a long time, and you know that anybody that's talked to me in the past about this, I've kind of said, why don't you just order your prints online? They'll be there in a day or two. The quality is very good. You don't have to pay for the ink. You don't have to pay for the actual printer. But then this printer came and landed on my doorstep, and I started printing. All of the prints that you see out here, there's 14 of the prints that I think are here. I have sample images that were printed from an actual studio, from 2 different studios. I have luster prints, I have glossy prints. We're going to put them next to each other later on in the video to determine if you can see a difference between the inkjet and the wet process, or if there really is a color difference, because sometimes one may be better than the other. I've noticed that I am really loving the pop that is coming out of these inkjet prints. The color has been incredible, but when you put it next to a lab print, it may be almost impossible to tell which is which, but there are subtle differences. And later on in this video, I'm going to bring in some professional photographers to look at both of them. They won't know which is which, but they're going to have to sit there and try to guess which one is the inkjet and which one is the wet print that came from a lab, and then try to determine if there's a difference between those and which one they like better. So I've had different papers from different companies like Hammermule, Red River, and primarily I've used the inkjet paper that came from Canon. It's their Pro Luster. They sent me 50 sheets of that. So my concern with printers like this has always been, getting the color right on the screen compared to getting it right on the print. Now, I'll tell you, I use my iMac. It's a 27-inch iMac, and I've never done any screen corrections. I've never done, what do they call that, Stephen? Calibration. I've never done color calibration. I have like 4 color monkeys sitting behind my desk, but I've never used one. I pretty much turned the printer on, connected it to the computer, and followed what common sense said. I set the profiles. Now let's talk about the profiles real quick. Canon gives you profiles. Red River gives you profiles to tie in with the right paper. So what a profile does is it tells your computer, or tells the printer, the best way to coordinate the print from the screen to here to give you the best color. Now, I've never color calibrated my screen, and I was really, really happy with the very first prints that came out of this printer without doing anything different to my screen. So Canon includes a plug-in for Lightroom and Photoshop that basically gives you all of the things you need to set. The color profiles, the paper that you're using, the speed, whether you want to do it on fine, which I'm all about printing it on the finest setting, versus standard. Now the difference is a print on fine is taking, say, 15 minutes to fully print. Now that's a full 13 by 19, which is the largest that this printer does. That takes 15 minutes on fine, at least in my tests, for a full color print or black and white. Now, when I knocked it down to standard, it only took 5 minutes to do a 13 by 19. Is there a difference between both of them? It's very hard to tell, but we're going to put that to the test when the pros take a look at it to see if they can notice the difference between the fine printed one and the one that was printed on standard. One of my concerns has always been about the expense of the ink. And I found out that it's really not that expensive. Red River on their website does a rundown. They did a test with like 200 prints of the same print, and they tested the costs. And I think something like a 13 by 19 is maybe $5 or $6 full printed. And that's not bad at all, considering if you order one from a lab, you're looking at $4, $5, $6 for a 12 by 18, which is full frame, because they don't do 13 by 19s. Plus, you have to pay for shipping. So those are the concerns that you keep in mind. But really, I've been very happy with the quality coming out, and I don't think the price is that big of a deal. Who is it for, though? If you're a home printer, if you just want to print for yourself, you're not selling them, you're not making money off the prints, you don't really need it instantly, then you may want to just order prints online and have them delivered to you because you don't want to drop $600 or $700 on a full pro printer. That may not be what is best for you. But if you're running a studio and you have people coming in and you want to give them prints, you want to let them leave with something, or you're selling stuff to art galleries or you're selling your stuff online and you want to do your own prints and keep control of that, then this could be a good option, especially that the prints are averaging about the same cost after you add in the paper and the ink. I went through and printed all of these prints right here, all 14 of these, and you can see on the screen how much ink is left. I only killed one ink cartridge, and that's the Photo Black. That one needs to be replaced, but that's cost me, what, $14.99 or $15.99 to replace that one cartridge, and there's still plenty of ink left in the others. So really, it's not chewing up the ink as much as I thought it would, and it's doing a great job at giving me the prints that I like. So I think it's time that we move on and continue this discussion. There's a lot of different options that you can do with printers like this, but really, it was simple to set up. Yes, this one does offer a Wi-Fi version to connect to the computer. I couldn't figure it out. I really didn't want to sit there and figure out how to make that work. I tried. I pressed the button. I pressed the WPI or whatever, the WPS on my router. It didn't connect. Whatever. I'd used the old-fashioned method of plugging in the USB cable. And I thought, hey, that works. That's easy. I might as well do that. So really, the setup's easy. It's a printer that's built like a brick house. I'm really, really happy with it. So let's get into the full-on discussion and put the pros to the test and see which prints they like best. So now I'm here with Dominic Episcopo. We have a professional photographer who's been in the field long time. You can see him in Raw Talk, one of the Raw Talks that we did. Just take a look at that. So have you ever owned an inkjet?
I did a while back. I don't own one now. I didn't find that I had a need for it because I'm not turning around prints for clients really quickly. Most of my clients are commercial jobs and they're looking for files. So I'm sending them a file. When I did have an inkjet, it was to make portfolio pieces. But I don't really carry a hard portfolio around anymore.
Right.
My portfolio is just on my website. And so I found I wasn't using it for like years at a pop, and so I just got rid of it.
So that makes sense, because an inkjet just sitting around is either the ink's going to dry up, or every time you turn it on, it's going to recycle through and just waste the ink that you're using. So I've got a bunch of prints right here. I printed them with the Pixma Pro 10 and Adorama Pix. I had the same exact prints done. So we have a lab being done and we have an inkjet being done, and it's our job to try to figure out which is which and if there's a difference. So we'll start with this bad boy right here.
Well, I mean, right off the bat, just from where I'm standing, this image is way more magenta. This has a little more green in it, or maybe this one's more neutral and this one's just so magenta that it looks green next to it.
See, I see the magenta down, well, yeah, I guess you see it here.
Well, here, this does feel a little more purpley here, but this is the magenta one. Look at your blacks.
Which one's the inkjet?
I don't know that.
I'm not
sure that I could tell.
Well, let me just tell you guys, staring at these side by side, they are very, very similar. There's pros and cons to both. And when we talk about pricing, I looked this up on Red River's website. They had a test that they did, and it's about $5, $5.50 with the print, with the paper, to do a 13 by 19. And at Adorama Pix for a 12 by 18, what did I say, Stephen? Like $5.50? I think it was around $5.50. So the costs are about the same. That's not including the $700 to buy the printer, but ink-wise. So if you had to give a guess, and then we'll figure out which is which.
If I had to give a guess, I'm going to say this is the inkjet that you made. But let me just say that I'm looking for something to be different with these prints. These prints are essentially the same. I mean, I think you would be satisfied with either one.
Yeah.
I mean, we're splitting hairs.
Inkjet is on the right here.
So I was right.
You were right. And this one is the lab print. But they are very similar. If we weren't looking at both of them right here, you wouldn't know the difference.
I would accept either one of these prints if I didn't have something to compare it to judge it.
All right, so now we have this Matis Yahoo print.
Now, I see in his face is much more opened up right there. Look how much lighter that highlight is than here. Now, I don't know if this is just a printed a little heavier.
Well, I printed them the same.
Look it.
It was the same everything. The same file, right up to Adorama Pix and right out of the printer, which is what I did.
And the highlights in his jacket, there's a lot more green in that one. This one, they're more yellow.
It's subtle.
It is subtle, though. Again, I would accept either one of these prints if, I didn't have the other one to compare it to.
So which one's which this time?
I'm going to say that one is the inkjet you made.
Yeah, this is the inkjet, and I think there's a theme. The inkjet seems to come out a little more vibrant.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more vibrant, which is fine. I like the saturation and the contrast that comes out of that. So we've got those two. Why don't we move to a portrait? Because I wanted to give a good cross-section of work to try to, you know, we've got sports, we've got portraits, we've got a lot of color. We have a, yeah.
Again, same thing. I mean, your highlights are a little hotter here than they are here. There's definitely more definition here. But on a portrait, I think I like that one better. I mean, I'm not interested in seeing her pores and all the detail that's in here. Again, this one feels a little more magenta to me as well. I mean, look at her lip color, how much it shifts. Again, these differences are really subtle, but I'm going with that one, and I'm going to bet that's the inkjet that you made just based on the other ones that we looked at. But even in this rose, this bud of this flower here, a lot more information in there, a lot more depth. This one is almost, you know, getting heavy.
Yeah, this one is the inkjet, so you're right again. It's a little more vibrant, and then this is the one that's from Adorama Pix. But again, if you weren't sitting here with one or the other, you wouldn't know the difference. So
yeah, they're very close.
Difference, order one in, you'd never know. Printing it at home, costs are about the same these days, which is pretty interesting.
Out of the three that we've looked at, I feel like these have the biggest difference.
Well, let's bring one together that could be hard to tell. So we've got Marissa here. See, this time you don't have any difference in the highlights. They're mostly the same.
Well, again, this one, her face is a little bit lighter. I'm going to say it's 5% lighter than it is here.
I wonder what the differences are. I mean, I don't know. We can ask Steven because he worked in the lab before. Maybe there's going to be a difference. We'll do
I mean, your pink is a little more saturated here, but that's because this print feels a little heavier to me overall. Again, I like the lighter print, though. And that's because it's a face. You know, we're talking about a person. You don't want their face to get too heavy. We're not interested in every pore.
So which is which this time?
I'm going to say that this one is yours.
Yeah, this is the inkjet, but I actually like the lab print this time. I like it because you can see there's a green tint over here, and I think the green tint isn't on it as much in the one that came back from the lab. I just feel that this one has a more natural skin tone color versus the one that came out of the inkjet. And I have to remind you that when I sent it to Adorama Pix, I told them make no corrections to the file. Leave it as is. So
yeah, I'm feeling this one feels like a little green, almost green yellow in her face.
A little bit.
Whereas that one, the magenta, I think would be a little more becoming if it's going to be in a subtle way like this than green in someone's skin tone.
So I have a different thing for you. For some reason, this print didn't match, but the soccer one didn't match, the oranges. These are both from the inkjet. All right? These are both inkjets, but they were printed different. One took 15 minutes and one took 5 minutes. So one was printed on fine and one was printed on standard. Can you see a difference? Because you know, there's a difference in time, and I don't know if it uses more ink or it doesn't. They haven't really explained. They told me that it doesn't, but this is, I know it's hard to tell.
Yeah, this is a really tough one to tell.
I mean, I think I don't know until I look at the back, but I think that this one is the one that took 5 minutes. And I think I can see that it's not as, the lines aren't as fine, not that there's lines, there's no lines, but it's not as fine.
Well, this one almost, and it might be my imagination, feels a little more saturated to me.
It
Just
does.
a hair, the orange in there and the orange in there. And I'm gonna go with you and think that this is the 5 minute and this is the 15.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, not
Uh-oh.
marked.
Let's see.
Here's fine.
Oh, so we were right. I wrote it small. We are right. So there is a difference.
Subtle,
it's
as
subtle,
could be.
but in the oranges, this is brighter. This orange looks brighter.
Yes, it does.
Than that orange. So it is showing that when you do print it on fine, and it takes longer, there is a difference.
It definitely is a difference.
Because I could see it in here, but on what I'm looking at down close here is that it seems like I can see the grain a little bit. But in this case, it just looked finer. So good. There is a difference.
Yeah, this one definitely feels a little more saturated. That orange is definitely deeper.
But like I was saying to people, if you're shooting sports and you're out there and you need to sell these prints quick, will that person buying them know the difference? No. Will it really hurt the quality overall in the long term? I don't think so. So if you need to print them quicker on the spot, that would be a great way to do it. So we can look at others, but I think we're good here.
I think the only time that might make a difference is if you're not starting with the best file. You're starting with a file that maybe was overexposed or underexposed, and you've done a lot of work to it to kind of recover it. You might start to see a difference. It might be a little more relevant then to use the 15-minute. That's just a guess, but
I mean, it's close.
They're so close. They're really
close,
are.
but I'm glad that we could see a difference.
Yeah.
So overall, looking at the prints that we looked at, what are your thoughts between the lab and inkjet? Would you consider having one now, or still the same thing? You don't do a lot of printing.
Well, I don't do enough printing to have one, but I have to say, if I did, I'd want to have an inkjet. I think they are. I picked the inkjet one in every single comparison. So I mean, to me, it
felt right.
It's pretty unanimous.
A little more punchy and stuff. But this is just one lab. I think that it's very subtle. I could go either way, whether I order the prints, but now that I have the printer sitting here, I'm pretty happy to have it.
Sure.
But you just have to justify the $700 in cost, the upfront cost. Now, the prints may cost about the same. When you get into the smaller prints, you're paying more for a 4x6 than if you ordered it, but that's without shipping.
I was going to say there's shipping and all that involved, and it's instant.
Right, it's instant, and it's pretty close. So like I said to people before, if you do a lot of printing and you want to give people prints right away, you can't go wrong with one of these. They're pretty close.
Oh no, I mean they're right on the money, I would say.
Cool. All right, Dom. Thank you very much for giving us your professional eye to look at these.
You're welcome.
All right, we're moving on.
Thank you.
So as you guys know, whenever there is a review involving Canon, Fro Vader likes to show up. Well, now it's time to bring Fro Vader out to do his review of the Canon Pixma Pro 10.
Canon Pixma Pro 10 review. I love printers. I mean, I would always have, I've got big printers at the Death Star. That's how we print out our, like, Wookiees. We get big Wookiees and we have target practice. We're like, pew, pew, pew. Oh, but anyway, I wanted to give my review of the Canon Pixma Pro 10. I really think it's a fantastic printer. I mean, 10 intergalactic inks? How can you go wrong? There's intergalactic blue, there's intergalactic red, you can make lightsabers, and even if you've got purple, you can make purple, so you can be like, ooh, I got a purple lightsaber. You can do whatever you want. But let me tell you, it's a fast printer, it smells nice, it does a great job. I mean, look at these prints. Look at this punum on this face of this girl. I mean, look at her. She's like, oh my God, I'm so good looking. Oh, Fro Vader, I want to be with you. And I'm like, okay, you can fly on the Death Star pole. And I'd be like, oh my God. And then she's like, oh my God, it's like I'm Princess Leia. And then I'm like, oh, but wait, isn't Princess Leia my daughter? I'm like, oh, you're my daughter? Get away. I can't be with you. I'd be like, you being with Luke. I mean, Luke is my father. I mean, I'm Luke's father. But let's pretend that you're not like Princess Leia. Okay, oh Jesus, I dropped you. I'm sorry, you dropped off of Cloud City, but luckily for you, I've got another print right here. Oh, Fro Vader, you saved my life. You are so amazing. I know I'm amazing. Would you like to see where Fro Vader sleeps? Oh, absolutely. I'm very likely to go see where Fro Vader sleeps. Oh, it's amazing. I have this waterbed. It's an intergalactic waterbed, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so amazing. And is that all you say? Oh my God, it's so amazing? Yes, Fro Vader. See, I love when girls tell me yes. They just tell me what I want to hear. Actually, that's the force running through. I'm like, tell me that I'm so amazing. And they're like, oh my God, you're so amazing. And I'm like, I know, it's true. So that's my review. I give this printer a thumbs up. Fro Vader says it's awesome, and I'd buy it. I'd buy like 7 of them so that I can always be printing stuff. And you know, that's it. That's it. Thank you, Jared, for doing this, and I'm gonna go see the intergalactic internals of this new person. Fro Vader out.
So we've come to the conclusion of this long review. Now, I hope you enjoyed the more in-depth style that I put together here for you for the Canon Pixma Pro 10. This is along the direction that I want to keep going. You've heard what the pros have to say. You've heard a little bit of the discussions about the wet process and versus the inkjet and the side-by-side comparisons. Now, I want to tell you what I really think in conclusion about this. Would I buy one of these printers, or who is it for, and should you get one? Would I have one of these? Would I buy one of these? At this point, I love having this sitting on my desk. I love having the option of taking photographs of a model or having a musician over and hammering out a print for them right while they wait. Having the ability to instantly print them something that is extremely high quality, that's going to last because it is pretty archival. They say 80 to 100 years, I am pretty sure. And not that any of us will be here in that time unless you're 2 years old watching this video. But you know, I love the colors. I think the colors are more vibrant and saturated that are coming out of the inkjet than from the prints that are coming from the labs. The labs have been really close, but sometimes it's just the black levels. You know how I love crunchy and crispy prints and high contrast. The blacks are extremely black because there is a black ink being put down onto the page. When you're exposing that to light in the wet process, it just doesn't seem that the blacks are as thick. But in certain areas, the colors match. The colors are as intense. So like you could see that in the photo of Nick Perry, where the blues were really intense in one of the prints, they're really intense in the inkjet. So it's kind of a toss-up. If you weren't able to look at both prints side by side, you may not be able to tell the difference. I mean, you really wouldn't. If I was just looking at the inkjet, and then I removed the inkjet, and then I put the photo, the print from the lab there, you probably wouldn't be able to say, oh, I can tell the difference. This one's much better because of this. But when they're side by side, really, you have to get this close. And even this close, you're not able to tell which is the inkjet and which is the lab print. There's times where I was going through these myself and I had to flip the print over to determine which one was printed at the lab. That's how close they are. So if you can afford a $700 printer or the $1,000 printer that Canon offers and you are printing a lot, it's about volume. If you print a lot at home, it is worth it to have one of these printers. If you're a sports shooter and you go out on location and you need to hammer out prints real quick, well, then doing the 5-minute prints on standard and selling them is really going to get the job done quick. If you need to turn them around real quick and sell them, this is a great option. If you have time to wait and you need to order a lot of prints, well then the lab may be a better option for you, especially the fact that you're not $700 in the hole before you even get to printing your first prints. If you just print a print here and there and you turn the printer on occasion, then I don't think you should have an inkjet printer at home like this because you're just going to waste a lot of that ink when you go and you set it up and it calibrates and it runs through the whole process. That may not be for you, but if you're in a studio, you're selling a lot of prints, this could be something that I would suggest picking up and investing in, especially if you can make money from it. If you can sell your prints, then it doesn't matter how much the printer costs or how much the ink costs. You're going to make money, and that's what it comes down to as a photographer. So really, I am very, very happy with the quality of prints that came out of here. I can honestly say I'm a changed person. It has changed my mind. I was so anti-inkjet, it just didn't make sense. But now, after seeing the proof in the pudding, it really does make sense. So where do we go from here? What's the next step after this review? Well, there's a lot of different papers to choose from. There's generic inks. There's the Canon inks. Nikon doesn't make a printer. There's Epsons. I hope to review an Epson printer one day, but I've got different papers. There's a ton of different paper companies out there. We're going to do some more in-depth reviews of different papers to try to show you what other options are out there for fine art prints or just regular prints in general. So if you're looking to pick up a Canon Pixma Pro 10, I know that Allen's Camera carries them. You can always give them a call. They have the paper, the inks, and everything there to help you out. And there you guys have it. Don't forget to sign up for the Fronos Photo email list. You can do that up on fronosphoto.com. Just look for the orange box, and I'll send you a free ebook in your email, which is a great little thing to help you out. So there you have it, guys. That is an in-depth review of the Canon Pixma Pro 10. It does get my vote of approval, and it certainly does smell good. Jared Polin, fronosphoto.com. See ya. It's just, you got to pump up the arms a little bit.
I hear you, brother.
I'm still...
I was young and single once. I know all about
look.
it. I know. I was the same guy, believe me.
It works.
I know it works.
It works.
I know it does.
What review would be incomplete? What am I doing?